The New Age war on fear is beautifully futile, and Feel Good, great name, that we're going to be looking at in this video, seems to be taking that up a notch of late. Now, New Agers have been riding this love versus fear dichotomy all the way to abundance for far too long now. And along the way, and I'm speaking from experience in saying this, they've twisted themselves up into these tense little people, all seemingly in an attempt to avoid the inevitable, because fear of fear is still fear. Let's talk about this. So some of you have put me onto this guy, Feel Good, and I mean, some of the stuff this guy comes out with is just, it's brilliant. It's so good, like really fantastic stuff. So most of his channel seems to be channeling, which if you're not familiar with that, it's when people sit down and say that they're giving you information from some disembodied entity. Great stuff. And in this particular video, Feel Good's got some really insightful things to tell us about fear and stress and anxiety. So look, we can look forward to that. Hey everyone, if you're new here, I'm Andy Fellows and I make videos on cults, skepticism, and making sense of life after New Age spirituality. If you're interested in a more grounded and skeptical approach to New Age spirituality, then why not subscribe to the channel and hit the bell? So let's get into this video of Feel Good, and I'm going to be honest with you, it takes him 8 minutes to get to this point in the video. He spends at least 1 minute of a point earlier in the video railing his accountant live on air. Fantastic. Great one, Philip.
And it's probably been one of my most powerful weeks in a very long time. So I was highly stressed for 2 weeks because of my accountant. I don't want to point a finger, but honey, I like some reliability, honey.
And then he kind of goes on to talk about how he's had this experience this week where he's had a message from the Galactic Federation of Light, which feels different to when he gets his normal messages from, his regular guides. And they've told him to live fearlessly.
And it is when I surrendered that I got this download that was highly pivotal and highly transformational for me. My guide said to me, we need you to start living as if you've already died.
Honestly, it's kind of confusing phrasing. If I was, getting a message from really super intelligent intergalactic beings, you would hope that they would make a bit more sense than that. But let's be fair, track record on these kinds of things, they tend to be vague. They tend to be pretty difficult to decipher, right? Apparently now, the new way they're doing that is just literally just by saying things that really don't make very much sense at all, but that hook into a general sentiment that many people might understand. By the way, if you're enjoying this video as we're going through it, please hit the like button. So the clip I'm going to show you in just a second leads into his conversation about fear, but bear with, trust me, it's worth it, right? He's just explaining to everybody how he hasn't just been born again, and this is what he's saying as to why.
But I was born again in 2011 when I had my Kundalini awakening. I had a walk-in experience. It was a spontaneous walk-in experience, and I was born again. But the thing about being born again is sometimes the ego still finds a way to sneak in and wants everyone to know that you're born again. Look at me, look at me, look at me. This was different than that.
So bear in mind what he says there about the whole ego coming in and how this is different, This is not the kind of time when the ego might come in. Bear that in mind as we go on to what he's about to say now.
This was like, let's clear all of the illusions, all of them. And I did. So I've been living that way all of this week.
I just love that. They cleared out all the illusions. And I did. I don't have any illusions anymore. I'm actually free of illusions. I'm the most illusionless of all people, actually. If you've ever seen someone without illusions, I've got less, actually. Maybe that's too harsh, and I don't want to be too harsh. The vibe I'm really getting from Phil, from what he's saying here, is that he wants you to know he's gone through a transformation right now. He's gone through something big, and yet he also wants you to know that he was absolutely perfect before he went through that transformation. He might be talking now as if he's improved as a person since then, but actually impossible, because he was already doing great to begin with. I was already good, but now I'm even better, is the vibe that I get. And he does it again. The clip I'll show you in just a second. He's saying I'm never going to entertain fear again. And then he goes on to say something else like that. So watch this, you'll see what I mean.
So I've been living that way all of this week, where I'm choosing to no longer ever entertain fear again. And I tend to be pretty fearless as a whole, but this was a whole other level to it.
Do you see what I mean? He can't let it slide that actually he's doing great, by the way. As I was editing this, I kept sort of pondering why he might be saying something like that. And I think I think I've figured it out. And I can relate to this from when I was into the New Age stuff and when I was positioning myself as a teacher, as someone who kind of knew what they were talking about. The idea that you're a teacher, the idea that you've got it together is kind of a big part of being able to share these kind of universal truths, because if you know it, why aren't you applying it, right? I get the sense that it is part of that kind of caging yourself, like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, make ourselves these tense little people. This sort of need to make it really clear. He's not learning this now for the first time. He actually did know this on a level already. And I can relate to that looking back at myself in that time as well, that it's a really tense need to appear all the time like you already knew that, right? On the one hand, that's quite a fascinating thing, but also like from the inside, that's quite a painful thing. It's horrible to feel that restricted by the way you have to appear to everybody else all the time. Anyway, let's get on with this fear thing.
And what the guides explained to me is that as long as you live harboring fear or anxiety or stress, you're fractalizing. So you're living or playing small.
So fantastic choice of words there. And when he first said fractalizing, I was kind of like, what the fuck do you mean? But he explains that what he means is living or playing small. Well, I can kind of see where he's coming from on like the fear and anxiety and stress being playing and living small. I also feel like that's such a sort of vague generalization that it doesn't really stand up. And I think the vagueness damages the point he's trying to make a little bit. I think like in a day-to-day sense, stress is probably just a part of a lot of people's lives normally. And yeah, you can kind of reduce stress, but I don't think you can get rid of it altogether. And the same with fear and anxiety. I think, again, they're part of a normal, healthy, emotional experience, and while it's obviously not great to be in fear a lot of the time, while it's obviously not great to be anxious all the time, you're still going to come across them, you're still going to experience them from time to time. And I think a healthy emotional experience is one wherein you can navigate those and come in and out of those more easily rather than avoiding them altogether, Phil. That would be my concern here, but I'm not a mental health professional, but then neither's Phil, let's be fair. Also, I think fear has been a pretty useful thing, evolutionarily speaking. We wouldn't be here now if not for fear. And if Phil Good was able to get rid of fear out of his life completely, he'd be hit by a car tomorrow probably, because that little bit of fear is what keeps you from taking that risk when perhaps you shouldn't take that risk. One of the things that did stand out to me though is the point that he seems to be making here seems to be predicated upon the idea that mindset is like the chief determiner of whether or not you're going to have fear or stress or anxiety in your life. And again, I can think of a number of examples where that's not the case. For example, in like PTSD, where it's the consequence of a traumatic experience. How can you tell someone who's been through something like that, that's just them playing small, although they're just harboring fear and anxiety because they can't sleep at night because they keep having flashbacks? It just doesn't really make sense. Can you imagine? I just can't imagine the level of insensitivity that you have to be able to sit there and just be like, fear and stress and anxiety, that is the consequence of playing small. Point blank. It's like, no, it's not always. Sometimes it might be, yeah. And again, very subjective, very broad, very vague kind of a phrase to use there, but not always, Phil. But this wouldn't be New Age spirituality if we didn't blame the victim a little bit. Where's the lie? The best thing though about this is the example that he uses for living fearlessly and breaking outside of your boundaries and your borders and stuff. Listen to this. This is just, oh my God, just listen.
So if you can imagine that you're in this cubicle, but there's a whole office.
Why would you choose an office? Why would you choose an office? Like, of all the examples you can choose, you just think, oh, imagine you're in a cubicle and outside that, there's an office. Whenever I put videos like this out, there's always stuff that I can't include in the final video that I have to like cut due to time constraints or just YouTube not liking me talking about certain things. So at least once a week, what I've been doing over on my Patreon is I've been putting together these little audio companion things that go along with one of the videos in the week and that sort of explores the video's topic a little bit more deeply. So if you want to hear a bit more from me on some of the stuff that I'm talking about on the channel, or if you want to just help support the channel, then the best way to do that is check out the Patreon link in the description below and join at whatever tier is right for you. I'm Andy Fellows. I'm here pretty much every Thursday and Sunday. If you enjoyed the video today, please remember to subscribe to the channel. Otherwise, please be kind and ask good questions, and I'll see you in the next one.